Hey, everybody. It's Damone Seraphin here with Black Broadway Men, back with our Spotlight series where we lift and we laud and we celebrate the best and the brightest of Black Broadway men. And we are here with another episode with another incredible luminary. Needs no introduction, but of course, I will introduce him. He is the inimitable, the one and the only Kent Gash.
Yes, that's me. Hello, everyone.
What's up, Kent?
I'm doing great. Glad to be here.
Well,
Glad
we're
to be
so
here.
we're so glad to have you here with us. We're so excited to have you on this Spotlight series. You are definitely among the best and the brightest of our industry, and you are doing it on so many fronts. So why wouldn't we spotlight and lift and laud you and celebrate the work that you're doing? So
Thank you.
I want to jump right into this convo. It's a question that I ask everybody. Kent, tell us how it all started for you.
Well, that's gosh, I uh grew up born and raised in Denver, Colorado, and my family, while my parents were not in the arts, they were great lovers of the arts. So even as we were kids, they sort of took us to see everything, plays, movies, theater, uh, you know, uh, uh, concerts, dance. We were exposed to everything, and it was always with an idea that we were told you can do and be anything that you want to be. You have to keep your grades up and you're going to go to college. So, and because our family's not independently wealthy, you're going to have to work for a living. So you really should figure out something that you love to do, and do that for your livelihood. Because then if you do that, it doesn't feel quite so much like work all the time. Some days it may still feel like work, but most days it doesn't. And we were all, as kids, we all had to learn to play the piano for at least a year. And then
Mm.
if we wanted to play something else, we could play something else. We could. So I took piano from the time I was 8 until I was 18. So for 10 years. And
You still
then
play?
I play sometimes only I used to play more when I was an actor. I played to support and to teach myself music and stuff. Now I play, it's funny, I was talking with my family about starting to take lessons again, maybe just because it can be very therapeutic and very relaxing to play the piano. But I love music, and there's all kinds of music playing in our home. So and then I decided I also wanted to sing and be in plays. And that happened when I was about 13 or 14. So I tried out for production in Denver that was being done at the Denver Center for the Performing Arts before it became the full on center that we know now. It was a theater called Bonfils Theater. And they were doing a production of Victor Herbert's The Red Mill. I didn't
Oh,
even know what the
wow.
Red Mill was. I just thought, I want to act, I want to sing, I want to perform. And so I said it was advertised in the paper. I said to my parents, will you take me to audition for that? And they kind of looked at each other and said, yeah, okay. And so I didn't get in the Red Mill.
Mhm.
And they thought, okay, well, are you disappointed or whatever? I was like, no, I'll get in the next one. And so about and they were very encouraging when I auditioned. I looked much older than I was. And endless story short, I did another audition they were doing a production of Sugar, which was the first musical version of Some Like It Hot.
Uh-huh.
And so I got into that. And I was 14. And this was but I looked, like I say, I looked old at 14. I had a beard. I mean, it was crazy.
Oh, wow.
And so my parents said, look, you can do this, but it rehearsed at night. And so they took me to rehearsal and picked me up every night. And they said, as long as your grades don't go down, you can do this. And so it really went well. It was a lot of fun. I loved doing it. My grades actually, which were already good, but my
Mhm.
grades got better. It was
Ah,
that weird thing when you're asked to do more, you do more.
of course.
And so that was it. I started taking voice lessons as well as piano lessons when I was 14. And I got in a bunch of shows in Denver. I think I don't know. I mean, I did, and so many different kinds of shows. I did Sugar, but I also did Five on the Black Hand Side and
I love
Pearly.
that show.
And yeah, production of the musical version of Two Gentlemen of Verona,
Mhm.
um, production of Showboat, a production of Three Penny Opera. The Three Penny Opera, I got to sing Mac the Knife, and which was kind of extraordinary for my age. And got like really great reviews and everything. So I was also in the theater program in my high school. Now, Denver Public Schools at that time had a great arts education component.
Mhm.
So every high school had a theater program. My junior high school theater program went to London for spring break for 10 days. So, I mean, I went to London when I was 14 with my public school drama program. So that tells you a lot about
Yeah,
what was going on in Denver.
of course.
And so it was great. I saw John Houseman. It's funny now because I'm artistic director of the acting company, which
Yeah,
John Houseman founded.
found it.
But I saw him on the Mike Douglas show when I was like 15 years old, and he was talking about Juilliard and talked about the acting company. And he also talked about something called the League of Professional Theater Training Schools, which doesn't exist anymore.
Mhm.
But at that time, the league was Juilliard, NYU, where I currently have founded a music theater and acting program. But it was Juilliard, NYU, Carnegie Mellon, Syracuse, North Carolina School of the Arts, Temple. There were
Mhm.
about it would vary, but
CPM was in that cohort too.
I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think
yeah.
so. And
My
so
alma mater. Oh.
there you go. Um, the the league was a sort of clearinghouse, and it was also a standard bearer for professional theater training. So
Mhm.
if you were a league school, then at the end of your senior year, at Juilliard every year in the spring, there were league auditions. And
Yes.
every casting director from every network and every film studio and all of the major theaters and producers would gather at Juilliard for a weekend, and every senior class would perform their auditions, their showcase. And that's really how all these professional theater showcases got started. You started with the league.
Mhm.
Well, I read John Houseman was talking about all of this on Mike Douglas. Before I even got to high school, then it was junior high and high school. Now it's middle school.
Yeah.
I wrote to the league and got a pamphlet for all the schools because I knew I had to go to college. So I wrote to the league and got a pamphlet for all the schools that had professional theater training programs because I was going to have to get a degree, and I decided I was going to get my degree in acting. So I came to New York when I was a senior in high school and auditioned. I was here for a week. I think I saw 8 shows in that week and did all my auditions. I
Mhm.
was waitlisted at Juilliard. I was not accepted at NYU, which is funny to
Funny,
me.
funny.
Uh, and I was accepted at Carnegie Mellon. And I knew it was interesting. I loved New York. It was my second, or I think it was my second time being in New York, and I really loved being here. but I also knew very quickly that I should not go to college in New York
Yeah.
because I was nothing if not precocious and curious and excited by all the things that can be exciting in New York. And
Mhm.
so when I got home and my parents asked me, and because I came to New York uh, on my own, my parents didn't come with me. It was just me by myself
Yeah. Yeah.
and I stayed with a buddy of mine who went to school at Columbia. Um, and when I got back, my parents said, "Well, how'd it go? And what do you think's going to happen?" And I said, "Well, I think Juilliard went okay. NYU did not go particularly well. But I really hope I get into Carnegie Mellon." And they were surprised. They were like, "Well, Carnegie Mellon's in Pittsburgh. It's not in New York." And we thought you wanted to go to New York. I said, "I'll go to New York after I go to college. I want to go in Pittsburgh where I can really focus on my work. If
Yeah.
I go to school in New York, I'm going to be distracted by New York."
Mhm.
Um, and they were like, "Okay, all right, well, that's fine. We'll see." And it turned out that Carnegie was the first school to accept me. Eventually, I heard from Juilliard, but I had already just knew that I wanted to go to Carnegie Mellon, so I was thrilled.
Yeah.
I had a great time at Carnegie Mellon. I moved to some of my best friends are still from Carnegie, and that time at
Who were
Carnegie
some of your
Mellon.
classmates, Kent?
Rob Marshall was in my class, Jordan Thaler,
Yeah.
brilliant, one of the great actresses of our generation, who's sadly no longer with us, a woman named Gail Great.
Yes, I loved Gail.
Yeah, she was genius.
Yeah.
She originated the America play for Susan Laurie Parks. She
Yeah.
played all these brilliant roles at
We did
ART
rounds
and
together.
at Arena Stage. She was brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, and Tamara Tooney is in that class, was in the class above me as well. So, and she's still one of my closest friends, and we in fact had the same birthday. So
Huh.
Tamara and I are very close. But it was a great time to be at Carnegie Mellon. And I loved the training I got there. I knew that I was going to college not to, and this is something I think about and talk about a lot with our students at uh, New Studio on Broadway at the program at NYU. I was going to find out what I didn't know.
Yeah.
I'm always more interested in what I don't know than I am interested in having whatever the status quo is or whatever my
Sure.
opinions already might be. I already know what those are. I mean, I don't really need those validated by someone else or something else. I'm more interested in what I don't know already.
Mhm.
And so Carnegie Mellon was great for that. I learned an enormous amount about acting, but also about how to have sort of a life as an artist.
Ooh, talk about
Um,
that.
well, I think
Because I don't think we talk about that a lot. Certainly in
no,
our
we
training
don't.
programs, we talk about all of the tricks of the trade. We
Oh
learn
no,
all of the steps,
yeah,
but we
no.
never teach our students how to navigate a life
Well,
in the
I
industry.
mean, first of all, you have to understand that, and I always say, students are always like, "Oh, I love the theater, I love," and I'm like, don't love anything that can't love you back.
Yeah.
Save your love for other human beings.
Ooh, say that again.
Save your love for, save your love for things that can love you back. Because if a human being treated you as erratically and as mercurially as the theater can sometimes treat us, you would call that a dysfunctional relationship and you would encourage someone not to be in it
Indeed.
because it might be toxic and it might not be good for them. There
Mhm.
is a great deal that a life as an artist can give you but you have to know why you're in it and you have to know what you want from it. And if it's about I mean, for me, it was, and this really comes from my parents, and from my family. We were always raised that your purpose in life needed to be to improve the quality of whatever you were a part of to the best of your abilities, and to not leave things in the same condition that you found them, you
Mhm.
know, that you could learn something from literally everybody. Uh, and it was kind of your responsibility to learn all that you could from everyone and everything that you possibly can. And so part of, I think, uh, an artistic life is really about cultivating artistic and human curiosity, so
Mhm.
that you are seeking, again, seeking what you don't already know. We
It's
make,
funny that you say this, Kent, and we've never shared a rehearsal room together, but I think the thing that immediately attracted me to you as an artist is just that kind of curiosity. I don't know if people tell you this, you walk in that curiosity. You
well, I thank you.
you
I hope
do.
so.
You
I
do.
hope so.
And
I hope
it's
so.
infectious.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I mean,
It really is.
certainly my life and my work, both as an actor and as a director. I mean, we haven't really gotten to the
Well,
directing
we're
part,
about to get there.
but well, I have always been enriched by uh and uplifted by a collaborative process, by what it is because it's all sort of a collaborative living dialogue. You're in conversation with the text.
Yeah.
If you're doing a piece of musical theater, you're in conversation with you're in a dialogue, a living dialogue with the score. You're in a living dialogue with the lyrics, with the rhythms, with the design, all of it. You really are. And what we try to cultivate in the training program, and what I've tried to model and continually ask myself when I'm engaging material, but
Mm-hmm.
also when I'm engaging other human beings. It's interesting, the line between what happens in your life and what happens in your work gets very muddied after, if you do something long enough, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Um,
Let
I,
me let me ask you this. Let me ask you this, Kent. Because we're jumping, and I want our audiences to track this.
hmm,
Uh, you came out of Colorado. You
right.
went to
Went to
Carnegie
Carnegie
Mellon as a
Mellon.
performer. Did you come to New York as a
As a
performer?
performer, right. I was an actor in New York from 1982. I was an actor, full-time actor from 1982 to 1993.
Uh-huh.
90, my full-time acting career culminated as a company member at American Conservatory Theater in San
San
Francisco
Francisco.
for a year.
Uh-huh.
I went there with Carrie Perloff when she was
Yes.
named artistic director there, and I did Miss Evers Boys,
Love
and
that.
then I played Gustav, the Swedish European butler who was womanizing, terrorizing all the women in the mansion at in Dinner at Eight,
Yes.
which was an extraordinary experience with these great actors, Peter Donat, Jan Miner, who
Uh-huh.
Jan Miner was Madge, the Palmolive woman
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
that
Yeah. Yeah.
commercial, but she had this huge career of playing Shaw opposite Rex Harrison. And I mean, it was crazy. But I did company work at as an actor. I did company work at Alabama Shakespeare Festival for 2 seasons. I did Henry V parts 1 and 2 for Joanne Akalaitis at the Public Theater.
Yeah.
But I also did this great play called Jonan at the Public Theater, where I was understudying. Jerome Preston Bates was in it.
Oh, Jerome.
Yeah, it was crazy. This wonderful comedy about a black fraternity that was written by Gerard Brown. It's a terrific play that's ripe for rediscovery. It was
Did you
quite
did you catch that, kid?
remarkable.
Did you
I
catch that?
did. I see you. I
Did you
see you.
did you catch that? So listen, this is interesting, Kent, because um, you've enjoyed this kind of incredible acting career, and then here's the other thing that we know about you. You're an incredible director.
Well, whether I'm incredible or not is left to the eye of the
Well,
beholder. But
well,
I certainly
let
seem
me
to
love
keep
on you.
doing it. You
Let me
know.
love on you because that is what we do here. That's our endeavor to lift and to laud and to love on those who are doing the thing. And
Well,
you have
thank you.
made quite an impact as a director, Kent.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
tell us what was that moment in your acting career where you
Oh,
said,
sure, sure. I had an interesting thing happened first, and I just will share this because, in terms of how journeys work, I coveted when the original production of La Cage aux Folles opened on Broadway, I coveted playing the maid. I
oh,
just thought, oh, I want that part. I could play that part. And all my friends, Rob, everybody was like, oh, you'd be great in that part, blah, blah, blah. So you think, ah, yeah, well, I want that part. Well, I auditioned for it and I always got down to me and like two other people. And I didn't get any of the Broadway replacements. Then they were doing a new tour with Larry Kurt, who was the original Tony, and Harvey Evans, who was the first Jet replacement in West Side Story. And my agent called and said, okay, they want to see you again for La Cage. I'm like, ugh, bad. They never cast me. Why am I going back in? I said, okay, I'm going to go. But I'm telling you, I said to the agents, this is the last time I'm not going in for this again because I'm tired of getting down to the me and one or two other people, and then they give it to somebody else.
mhm,
It's clearly not a show, not my show. Endless story short, I got it that time. And I got the tour and I did that for like a year. And then I did it again with Larry and Harvey. It was really wonderful. And they were both extraordinary, extraordinary people. And I learned so much from them. But I knew even in rehearsal, Arthur Lawrence came up to me and he said, during a break, and he said, what's wrong? And I said, I don't know if I can really do this. And he said, what do
mhm,
you mean? And he said, I said, I want this made to be, I have to be a whole person. I have to be, I said, I understand how the part is built. It's a series of entrances with some very amusing costumes. And there's one central scene in Act Two. Uh, and then, so I mean, I get how the part functions in the play and what the part's responsibilities are, but he must be a real person. And Arthur just looked at me and laughed and he said, you're responding to something that needs to be there. And he said, just keep doing what you're doing. He said, you're the best actor who's ever played the part. So just keep doing what you're doing. Now, later in the rehearsal process, at one point, he sort of came for me in that way that people do. But, that was interesting too, because when he did, I was like, um, I I don't really want this that badly. So when you're ready to talk to me and have a civil tongue in your head, we'll continue this conversation. And if not, I'm going to go and call my agent and go home. So you tell me, what are we doing?
mm, mm.
And he was like, he sort of got quiet and went on and did some other stuff and came back to me and he said, are you ready to be spoken to now? And I'm like, do you have a civil tongue in your head? And from then on, he was great to me. He really was. He was really wonderful. So by
Can
the
you
time
say
I,
something? Can you say something? Because I think what you did is valuable,
hmm,
and I think I think especially for Black artists, for Black men, that kind of autonomy, to have that kind of autonomy, is vital. But I think that that comes from somewhere, doesn't it?
Well, yes, I think it does. I think it comes from, well, it was a couple of things. A, I wanted to, I wanted, and I think, pardon me, I think we all want to do this. I don't know what everybody else wants. I can only really only speak for myself. But I was not in it to be famous as an actor. I really was not. I didn't care so much about that. What I cared about, what I cared about was that people had some kind of experience or could recognize some sense of truth and humanity in whatever it was they saw me doing. And that's really the thing I think is sort of guiding principle in everything for me. It's like every piece, every role, whether I felt this as an actor and I really feel it as a director, and it's something that we teach. You have to, what is the material asking of my humanity?
Mhm.
What is it asking of my humanity? And how do I bring that humanity to answer the questions that the material is asking? That's
Mhm.
all that really matters. Because if I do that, then anybody who witnesses the piece, even if they decide they don't like it, even if they look, I know there are people who did not like my work in Lacage. I'm fully aware, because I was different. I played it differently. And but it was like you might not like it, but you can't say you didn't understand fully whatever it was I was trying to do.
Mhm.
You can not like it, and that's fine. And people, some people didn't, and that's okay too. Nobody likes everything, you know. So I really felt like everything had to have some sense of recognizable truth in it, and that I had to put some I had to use my humanity and also use my imagination and everything else to contribute to whatever the play was asking of me, whatever the play was. And I
Mhm.
felt that as an actor, and I certainly felt it as I certainly feel it as a director. So when things became disproportionate in that one moment with Arthur, what I knew was that that conversation and what he was coming for me about didn't have anything to do, actually didn't even have anything to do with me. It had to do with something else he was upset about in terms of how the process was going, but he
Mhm.
couldn't put it where he
It
needed
needed to
to.
be.
So he
Yeah.
came from me because he thought I was vulnerable. And what he
Mhm.
didn't know was that I had already gotten the lesson that I was supposed to get from doing Lacage, I had actually already gotten. I didn't even need to perform it for 8 months to get that lesson. I
Yeah.
didn't need to. So I was like, if we're done, we could be done. We could be done. That would be, we could be done. You
Mhm.
know, and I don't know why. Like, I should have been afraid of Arthur. I mean, this is the man who wrote Gypsy and wrote West Side Story. I should have been, and he had already fired somebody in our company.
Mhm.
So I mean, that was all very real. But I don't know, no amount of fame, no amount of, oh, the business this and oh, the business that and oh, the Broadway community this and the industry that, you know, really? I mean, look, when you wake up every morning, the Broadway community, the industry, and all the rest of it, they don't look you in the mirror and help you
Mhm.
brush your teeth.
That's
They
it.
don't wash your face for
That's
you. They
it.
don't, you really have to, you can't get it twisted. You can't get it twisted, because the second that becomes the penultimate thing, then it's not going to be about the truth.
Yep.
It's not going to be about the human experience.
Nope.
It's but not going to be about the human experience, both in the creative collaboration of making whatever it is you're making,
Yeah.
but then whatever you share with the audience as the director or as the performer is also going to be false and bankrupt,
I
because it's
think that's
about
the
the
thing.
wrong
Yeah.
thing.
I think that's the thing. When you allow room for one's humanity, when you're able to stand in the center of their humanity, you can't abuse that.
Right. Well,
You
that's all
don't.
we've got.
That's all
That's
we
all we've
got.
got.
And
You know,
I think we're
yeah.
moving in an interesting space and time right now where we used to hang our hat on that such treatment or accept that such treatment or allow room for that kind of treatment. When you go, no, I'm a full human being.
Right. And look, there are, I mean, on some level, we're all extraordinary and beautiful and unique and singular.
Mhm.
But if someone else is making the decisions, at some point, someone may decide you are not what's needed to tell this story. Oh, well, okay. Okay. That can't be. I think so often our self-worth is defined by how many people, or if the people that we're most obsessed with want us. And it's like, you better cut that out and decide you want
You
yourself,
want yourself.
you know,
Yes.
because then what's supposed to come to you will come to you. And
Yeah,
if it doesn't, even if you don't recognize it, that's the interesting thing about so much of life and so much of any career, I think, is, you know, the things that we are supposed to be doing, we will end up doing,
indeed.
and you can miss the lesson of whatever it is you're in the midst of if you're desperately seeking something else. Oh, if I could just get this, then it will prove that I can do this or that. If this or that artist likes me, or this or that director or producer or artistic director likes my work, then that means I'm valuable. Well, until you move the line again and somebody else becomes the it person, or the arbiter of excellence for you. You
Yeah.
must be your own arbiter of
Arbiter.
excellence.
Yes. Say that again. You
Must.
say that one more time.
You must be your own arbiter of excellence.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to set the bar,
Yeah.
and then you have to be interested in, okay, well, I mean, yes, I did this or that before, and I may have learned a great deal from doing that. But what's the thing that I think, oh gosh, I could never do, or I'll never be able to? That's the thing that you have to go after and try to do.
Indeed.
The things that terrify us
Of
and that
course.
we have no idea how to do, those are the things we
That's
should
the thing
do.
we have to do. Yeah. So
Yeah.
was that the moment that 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 made you do the leap or that made you
No, no. Interestingly, I was in a production of, I'm not going to name the show or the theater or anything, but it was one of those bless your heart experiences. And I was talking to Mel Shapiro, who was the head of the drama department at Carnegie Mellon when I was there, and went on to run grad acting at UCLA. Mel won the Tony for directing Two Gentlemen of Verona. We got on really, really well at Carnegie Mellon, and I loved Mel, and he was an inspiring artist and director, crazy as a bed bug, but that's part of what I loved, because again, the idea that seemed most impossible, that was the thing he always wanted to do. That was it, and have always been inspired by that. And so uh we were talking, and he said, I don't understand why you're not a director. actor. You're black, you're gay, plays in musicals that I don't even know when I was alive to see them. And you know about them. What are you doing? You could make, I mean, yes, you're a fine actor. It's very good. But what you could do as a director, and you could make so many opportunities for people. And I thought, huh, yeah, I guess so. And I had done a little bit of directing in college, a little. And I did little things, like I did a couple of little like club act things for people and stuff, little stuff. And then so I said to him, well, if I'm going to try to be a director, I really should make sure I actually know how to do it. And he was like, well, you come to UCLA, we'll get California to pay for everything. And I was like, okay. So
That
I applied to be to the MFA directing program at UCLA. I got my MFA in directing theater and television, and it turned out perfectly because California was about to phase out um uh sort of race-based admissions.
Mhm.
And I was asked to come by the directing faculty at UCLA. Mel set up an interview, and we talked, and they were like, come. Well, then I got ACT. Then Carrie asked me to come to ACT in San Francisco. So I said, okay. ACT was a bucket list theater for me. I had seen Peter Donat and Cyrano de Bergerac. I had seen Don't Bother Me, I Can't Cope at the Geary Theater. I was like, I want to go to ACT. This was
Yeah,
the theater that I trained to be a part of at Carnegie Mellon.
yeah.
So I went with Carrie to do that. And because I was in San Francisco living for a year, it meant that UCLA, instead of having to pay an out of town tuition,
Mhm.
paid only 2 years of California state tuition. Because I said to Mel, I'll go to UCLA, but I'm from the time I leave my front door until the time I go back home, I'm not paying for anything. I'm not incurring a penny of debt. So if you want me to come, California has to pay for everything. And because I wasn't at all sure I could be a director. That's why I wanted to go to graduate school, to find out if I actually had any chop and to actually learn what else I needed to know if I wanted to do it. And I wanted to fail a bunch of times at school so I could fail less as a professional.
For sure.
And of course, what I learned was that you have to fail as a professional too. It's the only way you ever get any better.
Yeah.
So, but it was great. It was really
What do you
great.
what do you surmise? Let me tell you what I hear. Again, we've never shared a rehearsal room. We've never shared a rehearsal room. We've never shared a rehearsal room.
Yes, okay, yes, okay.
That's it. But here's what it goes back to this conversation about honoring one's humanity. And
Yeah.
here's what I hear about your room, that it is a room where everyone's humanity is honored.
I would certainly like to hope so.
Eric B. Anthony literally just said that to me.
Oh, that's sweet. Well, I love Eric. He's
Yeah.
great. And
So, what do you surmise out of your experience as an actor? What was there are three questions here. What did, from your experience as an actor, you say, I'm going to bring these things into the room as a director? Mel said it. You're black, you're gay, you know more than anybody else. Uh, what are the things from your experience as an actor that you said, these are the things I'm bringing into my room that will make this room in this process stand out from the rest, or from your experiences as an actor?
um well, I'll try to answer. Right, that's a great question. Um with every play that I've ever played, musical that I've ever worked on as a director, the play is bigger than any one single person in the room. It has to be.
Yeah.
The play has to win.
Yeah.
The material has to win. And if you don't believe the material has to win, then you shouldn't be directing that play.
Mm.
The play has to win. Listen to what the playwright and the composer and the lyricist are asking of you, and really ask, what does this mean? What is this? I think we always jump right into the how of what it is we're going to do. Oh, I'll do it like this. I'll do it like that. Well, what the hell are you actually doing? What is the thing? What is the scene about? What is the moment about? What is the human event that is being manifest here? Because if you don't know what that is, then you're just flying blind. And invariably, you will fall back into whatever performative or received ideas about a thing might be. You will not tell the truth. You will not tell the truth, and you will not risk any of yourself in the telling,
Mm.
which you have to do. You
Yeah.
have to, you have to allow yourself to be known fully in the work. Uh you can't hide the uncomfortable bits. You can't hide the things that you secretly wish nobody knew about you. Well, in the telling of the tale, if the play requires that you expose that, you're going to have to expose it, or else you're going to fail. It's going to
Yeah.
fail.
Yeah.
It will be a lie. It will be false. And it's interesting. Human beings, um we're so much stronger and so much more resilient than our fears would allow us to believe. So we have all kinds of reasons for not doing something. Oh, I'm afraid of this. Oh, I'm afraid of that. And I often talk about this in the rehearsal room. It's like, oh, I'm afraid. I'm afraid. Yes, okay, okay. Be afraid. In fact, be really afraid and do it anyway. Because
Yeah.
the worst thing that will happen is it's going to kill you. That's the worst thing that could happen. It's
Mhm.
going to kill you.
Mhm.
Here's a news flash. From the first breath, you're dying.
Yeah. Ah,
You're dying. You're
yeah.
dying. It's the end of every story. We're dying right now in this conversation, and the conversation is probably killing some people. But the reality is, I mean, so what are we doing? What are we
Uh-huh.
doing? What do you do between the first breath and the last? What have you done with the time you've got?
Mhm.
Well, it seems to me that there's a way that we can live our lives, make our work, connect with each other as human beings that is full and rich, and that comes from a place of love and from a place of generosity and from a place of assuming the best about everyone and really being attentive and sensitive to where, we have to meet each other where we are.
Sure.
So often we want to project onto people, well, I need you to be this, I need you to be that. Well, that's all well and good, but who's in front of you?
Yeah.
Like, who's really just in front of your face? What
Yeah.
are they bringing?
Yeah.
And how does that humanity intersect with what the play and the score and the script are asking?
Mhm.
Of
Mhm.
the what's How does all that intersect with the story that you want to tell? And I am kind of obsessed right now about telling Black stories in particular that have not been told, because there are so many. um and continually sort of making spaces and space for people to do their best work. You want to create. I mean, you mentioned Eric Anthony, and he was just in Jelly's Last Jam that we did at Pasadena Playhouse, which was an extraordinary experience for me, because I'd done it once before, and I love the play. I think George C. Wolfe is a genius, and really every bit as important in the American theater and in the world theater as August Wilson, as Lorraine Hansberry, as Susan Laurie Parks. I mean, there are so many careers and so many people whose lives have been impacted by George's genius. And I am, a huge fan and admirer of the work. So, but again, we humbled ourselves on some level to the play and really asked, what is George asking of our humanity through this material? What are we to expose about what it is to be, about the human condition? What is being exposed in Jelly's Last Jam? And it's a lot. It's a lot. Um, it's, so that's really the thread, I think,
Yeah.
one of the threads that's in a lot of my work, if there is one. And I also, don't be boring.
Yeah.
Agnes DeMille, don't be boring.
Be boring.
Just don't be boring. Like because part of what happens, I think, if you watch kids a lot, little kids, like when they play with their whole, every fiber of their being, and they
Abandoned.
believe and they commit, and the rules of the game are the rules, and if you don't play by the rules, then I'm going to shoot you with my water gun and you're dead,
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
But as you watch kids experience storytelling, I always want there to be some moments of awe or surprise or delight. So often so often I see theater right now, and sometimes I just think, well, first of all, it's ugly. I mean, aesthetically ugly. There's no delight. The curtain goes up or a light comes on, and I see the person or see part of the world, and I just think, there's no sort of
Yeah.
that makes me sort of gasp and sit forward. And so I want a series of moments in any production, regardless of what it is. It doesn't have to be a musical, but
Right.
I want a series of moments that keep me constantly sitting forward,
Yeah.
keep me constantly engaged and invested in whatever the human events are. And the human events are surrounded by how you manipulate space and color and energy and sensuality and textures, all of those things. God is in the details.
Yeah. Yeah.
God is in the details. So every single choice, every single detail counts. And what's
Yeah.
great is, as the director, you put a bunch of people together and you hopefully have selected the most exciting, most imaginative company you can, and together you all go about telling a story and trying to make something beautiful
Do
and
you
compelling.
remember? Do you remember the first play where you were solidly standing in that place where you go, yeah, I'm a director? Do you remember that first play where all of those elements that you just spoke of solidly came together to solidify, yeah, this is who I am. Your play didn't look like anybody else's play. Your point of view, your touch, your vision, everything collided to make you go, yep, what was that play? Do you remember? Or musical?
Wow, that's a great question. One of the first show I did, the very first show I did professionally, Oscar Eustace, who's now artistic director of the Public Theater, taught a class at UCLA in text analysis and uh, sort of script analysis and text analysis. And I knew Oscar as from being an actor. He was not, at that time, he was the associate artistic director at the Mark Taper Forum.
Mhm.
So I walk into class. I'm like, what the hell are you doing here? And he's like, what are you doing here? I said, well, I had to come here because you never hired me as an actor. So here I am, you know. And he giggled and we kikied about that. And I did some text analysis papers that he was impressed by or whatever. And he said, when you're directing something here at UCLA, tell me and I'm going to come see it. And I was like, yeah, yeah, right. So I did a production of Reckless with a brilliant, brilliant actress who had no right being that brilliant at that age, but she was really amazing in the part. And he came to see it, and he offered me my first professional job because he was going to be artistic director at Trinity Rep, and he asked me if I would come and direct from the Mississippi Delta
Yeah.
in his first season. And so and it timed out perfectly because I could do it as to complete my master's degree. Had to do a quote unquote professional internship. Well,
Mhm.
my professional internship was a professional directing gig,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so I went and did that, and and it was a story that I wanted to tell, and I thought, it's a really fascinating story grounded in Dr. Andisha Ida May Holland's life story. Three African American female characters, really wonderful group of actors, two of whom are no longer with us, actually. Barbara Meek, one of the
Yeah.
old, long founding company member of Trinity Rep,
Yeah. Yeah.
genius and hilarious and wonderful. Anyway, I did that, and on opening, and there were a couple of things in the show that I thought, I really wish I could do this, or I really wish I could do that. So I tried to do them. And they were the things that really made the piece sort of soar. I mean, it was outrageous. Ed Haynes, who was resident scenic designer at the Taper when Oscar was there, was my scenic designer, African American scenic designer, and he just designed Jelly's Last Jam for me. So
Uh,
literally, Ed and I have worked together now, and that was 1994. We have worked
mm,
together for over 30 years. We have
wow.
done, and the Jelly's design was gorgeous.
Yeah.
He and from the Mississippi Delta, I mean, we set scenery on fire. We had rain, we had mud, we
Uh,
had a drop box. There's a story in the piece where a kid gets his Andisha witnesses a young boy getting his head bashed in by the police in a protest, in a civil rights protest. And the characters telling this part of the story, and I wanted it to have more impact. And so we set up a drop box above the top of the proscenium. And at the end of the story, I dropped a watermelon onto the stage and it shattered
mm,
as she talked about, right after she talked about his head being cracked open.
yeah.
And the audience sort of like gasped and I thought, okay, there might be something to this. I might be able to do this. And
Wow.
and because I knew the thing that I knew at that point was I was responding to something that was inherent or innate in the material. And and my imagination somehow was fusing with what Indisha had written and what Ed had created and what the actresses were creating, because that idea came, I don't know that it didn't come until like the second preview.
Mm,
And we worked it in and it made a difference. So now I've done a number of things that were not good. And productions that right after that, I did a production of something. I took a job not right after that, but my third professional job I took because I should, and it was a theater I should get on my resume and everything. I took it for all the wrong reasons.
Mhm.
It was disastrous.
Mhm.
It was terrible. I mean, look, it did fine for the theater. It made money for them. It was very popular, but it was awful. And opening night, I just sat there, and the artistic director said to me, "What's wrong?" And I said, "Let's be honest. Let's just tell the truth. This is bad." And he was like, "What do you mean? People are having a great time." And I said, "Well, people had a great time at Cats. That doesn't mean it was good. I mean, come on, you know, this is bad. It's not good. It has no reason for being. The people, I mean, there's some good music and lovely singers, but there's no human event. And I will leave people will leave the theater totally unchanged by having been there. And what's the point of that? That makes it a little less important for them to come, you know?
Wow. What great insight to be able to look at your work with that kind of assessment and go, yeah, this failed. Well,
Oh
However
yeah.
it, however it looks, however it tickles you, you can look at it. And again, you can only do that when you're honest to your humanity and go,
Well, yeah.
that
I
didn't do it.
yeah, it just
That
it was,
didn't do
and I knew when I was rehearsing it
it. So you
that
saw it
it
coming.
was, yeah, it was that I had no business doing that piece, that I took it for the wrong reasons.
Well,
Because
this is interesting.
I couldn't zero in, I couldn't find the heart of it. I
Yeah,
couldn't find the so I was sort of marking time. And yeah, I mean it, people stood in the right places and the lights came on them when they were supposed to, and all of that happened.
yeah.
But it was just as empty and as
Oh,
bankrupt as it could be,
yeah.
you know.
So here's a question, because we got to know Kent Gash, the actor. We get to see Kent Gash, the director. Kent, I met you. You were the associate artistic director at the Alliance Theater.
Right. Right.
And so what, but so this is a big question in the little bit of
Mm,
time that we have left.
okay.
What was the then step? What precipitated the step from going, I, I'm an actor who has this thing inside of me that, or someone said that I can do
Mhm.
this, so I did it and I do it well. And you have this foresight to go, this was great. That was horrible.
Yeah.
Uh, no matter how good it may look. Um, what then moved you from there to leadership in an organization?
A
In an
couple
organization, and I'm going to dovetail that because you were an associate artistic director there. There was a journey for you founding the new school
Right. Uh,
on
well,
Broadway.
yeah, uh, as I said, I had been an actor at Alabama Shakespeare Festival,
Mhm.
and I kept in touch with all of the places that I worked as an actor. When I was going to grad school, I let everybody know, okay, I'm taking this crazy, I'm taking an adventure. I'm turning the car towards directing. We'll see what happens. I'll keep you posted, blah blah. And lots of people were like, "Oh, that's great. That's exciting. I bet you'll be a good director or whatever." They were very sweet. And so I kept in touch with people. Ken Thompson, who was then the artistic director at Alabama Shakespeare Festival, and who I had been an actor with in his very first season, um, invited me to direct and then choreograph too, because early on I would direct and choreograph. I soon learned not, that there were better people to choreograph than me. I mean, I could step touch a little bit, but there were real choreographers who should be, and that's how I started collaborating with the brilliant Byron Easley and with Del Howlett, and
Yeah,
also with Darren Lee and Francis Chu on Pacific Overtures.
yeah.
But um, I went to Alabama Shakespeare Festival and did Five Guys Named Mo. Um, and and it went well. It went well. And so Kent asked me while I was there if I would be interested in being associate artistic director in Alabama. And I was like, no, because I don't want to live in Montgomery, Alabama.
Mhm.
But I also knew because again, one of the reasons why I was directing was not only because it was something I wanted to do, but because there were so many times when I was never directed by a black director, never directed by an openly gay director, and I knew that for every play where I was the only black person in the company, I knew that I could populate that play with black and brown people, with openly LGBTQIA people. I knew that I could populate the stage with people of artistic excellence who were not being invited to the party. And I felt like that was part of my responsibility. Well,
Right.
in order to do that, yes, it's good to be the director, but it's also good to be the artistic director and lead those decisions too,
Right.
so that your creative teams are of color, so that the other people on the administrative staff can look more like the whole world, because that changes. To change what's on stage, you have to change the culture that's creating what's on stage. And so that means people who are not part of a culturally monolithic conversation, that has to be cracked open, and that conversation has to be diversified. And so I said no to Kent originally. Then he hired someone else, and that worked out for a very brief period. And then the job became open again, like 2 years later. By then, I thought, okay, I'm gonna go anywhere. It's the same thing I said as an actor. When I was only doing musicals and I felt sort of not being challenged as an actor, then I told my agents I'll go anywhere in the country to do plays and roles in a new play, in a black centric play, in a classical play. I just want to do parts, because
Yeah.
if I was just going to step, touch, and 5, 6, 7, 8 behind somebody, I couldn't have done that without having gone to Carnegie Mellon. That's not what I went. That's not what I went to school to learn to do. I want to get better as an actor, and the only way you get better is by doing it. Same thing with directing and with leadership. When the job came open again in Alabama, I talked to Kent Thompson. I said, yes, I would like to do this job now. And he said, what's different? And I said, I know my directing career right now has been predominantly about directing plays and musicals that are only about the African American experience, and most of them have been relatively small. I see, if I want to direct Shakespeare, if I want to direct large scale works, I need to be in residence somewhere. I said, I'm only taking the job if I'm guaranteed one Shakespeare a year.
Oh.
And he said, okay, great. So I was at Alabama Shakespeare Festival for 2 years. Carl Kofeld was one of my first hires as an actor.
Uh-huh.
He played Duke Orsino in Twelfth Night for me.
He's killing the
And
game.
that was the beginning of our relationship and collaboration.
Mhm.
Um, and I had a great time in Alabama. And when Kenny Leon stepped down as artistic director of the Alliance Theater, Susan Booth was hired. Susan had heard about me from Regina Taylor, because
Good
I
one.
had directed world premiere of Regina's play A Night in Tunisia at Alabama Shakespeare Festival.
Uh-huh.
And I met Regina because she saw Harriet's Return that I directed with Debbie Allen at the Geffen in LA. So Susan asked me to come to the Alliance. I went. And again, we had a great relationship. I said to her, I have a lot of theatrical interests. I'm interested in a lot of writers. I'm interested in a lot of musical work. I said, but I want to do pieces of scale, and I'm not going to just be the replacement. I'm not going to be your black guy because Kenny's gone.
Yeah.
It's got to be a more sophisticated relationship than that. And it really was, to her credit. We got on well. and we had a great time. And I was able to do some thrilling work I worked with Kiara Hudes at the Alliance Theater. We commissioned a play of hers. I worked with, I did Susan Laurie Park's Top Dog Underdog there, but I also got to do Pacific Overtures, which was which went to 3 different theaters around the country and was a great collaboration. Now I would, as I was so enriched by that experience, but if I had it to do over again now, I would respectfully step aside and make sure that a Japanese director or an Asian American director had that opportunity. Now, I will say I only agreed to do Pacific Overtures with an all Asian company and with Darren Lee and Francis Ju choreographing it, and a woman named Yuriko Doi, who ran a theater in Yugen in San Francisco, was our kabuki and Japanese theater expert on the piece.
Mhm.
And the first thing I said, this was a great lesson for me too. The first thing I said in rehearsal, I said to the company, look, I think I know about musical theater. I think I know how I would like to tell this story. So, but the one thing I will never be is Japanese and or Asian. And so if I'm ever asking you to do something that's not, that feels wrong, I want you to tell me.
Mhm.
I want to be told, you know. And there was a great company of artists, and both Darren Lee and Francis Chu are really amazing human beings, but all of those actors were spectacular. Um, so I took those jobs and I said I'd spend 10 years anywhere in the country in artistic, learning how to run a theater, learning
Mhm.
what arts administration was really all about. Because I felt like I was on my way to cultivating being some kind of director and knowing how to make productions. But I also wanted to know what made theaters tick, how to deal with boards, how
Yeah.
to, all of that. And I learned an enormous amount. And I was asked by Mary Schmidt Campbell, who founded the Studio Museum of Harlem, and who was head of New York State Council on the Arts and eventually became dean of Tisch School of the Arts. She asked me if I would found this program, start an acting and music theater training program um, here in New York at NYU. Uh, and at the time she asked, it was right at the end of those 10 years. And I was like, yes, perfect, fantastic. I would love to. And again, I had never really done that, but I felt like I had been taught by brilliant people, Mel, Nora Dunphy, Victoria Santa Cruz,
Mhm.
Joanne Akalitis, Arthur, Lawrence. I felt like I had been learning from so many brilliant people. Cleo Parker Robinson, great choreographer in Denver, was one of my the first people who taught me how to dance, really. Carolyn Jones, Nancy Priest. I mean, everybody all these great people had taught me. Bob Page, who was brilliant musician and musical artist, like multiple Grammys, I mean, we had a lot of great teachers. I'm sure I'm leaving people out. Um, and the greatest teachers of all, my parents and my family.
Yeah.
I mean, sorry, but I just saw my mom. She's 95. I just came from being with her and with my sister. Uh, so I mean, look, I've been unbelievably fortunate and blessed in so many ways, raised with so much love and care. Um, and so, I feel like part of directing too, and certainly part of teaching, is you're really in service.
Yeah.
If you're the director, you're in service to the play,
Yes.
and you're in service to the other artists who are in the room.
Hmm.
Um, and as a teacher, well, I know I'm a better director because of the program at NYU, and because the new studio on Broadway is dedicated to not only whatever has come up to the moment we're in, however, we've made art and theater and told stories up to this moment that we're currently existing in, but also with a really healthy eye towards, well, what else might be possible? What might be possible in the future? And how do we bring forward the best of what we know already into where we might be trying to go? God knows we need our arts to inspire us
Yeah.
to be better. We're in a lot of trouble right now. And, the artists and the art is part of what could save us. But it won't if we're not paying attention, and if we're not really working through with a lot of love and with a lot of care and with a lot of respect. Um, and so that has also led to my being artistic director at the acting company
Acting
too.
company.
So, you know,
What a full life, and you dropped so many nuggets for us.
well,
Here is a question that I always end our time with.
okay.
Two-part, Kent. Um, what do you know now that you didn't know then? That's one. And then
Okay.
two, for all of the brothers,
Hmm.
gay, straight, binary, non-binary, LGBTQIA plus, um, for all of those who are looking to engage a life in the theater, what's the one thing you would tell them to make the journey easier?
Hmm. Well, I'll answer the last question first.
Yeah.
Allow yourself to live as curious and as authentic a life as you are capable of, on your terms, not on anybody else's terms. Because if and don't let anybody else define you or define what happiness looks and feels like to you. And remember that a career is a part of a life. It is not a life.
Mhm.
And if a career is all you have, it will never be enough. So allow it to enrich your life, but don't make it your entire life. Cultivate curiosity, cultivate interests, seek out what you don't know. And the thing that I would say, what do I know now that I didn't know then? What I know now that I didn't know then is I still have everything to learn.
Wow. What a beautiful way uh, to cap up this conversation. Thank you. Thank you so much for
Thanks.
your
Thanks.
work. Thank you so much for your life. Thank you
Mhm.
so much for sharing your life with the next generation of theater makers, the next generation of those who will inside of their life engage a career in the theater. Thank you, Kent, for being authentically you.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate
No,
that.
it's
Thank
true, and so we want to lift you and celebrate you and honor you for the contributions that you have made, that you are making, and that you've yet to make, that are for sure ahead of you in terms of your work at the new
Oh, thank you.
school and at the acting company and beyond.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. Hey everybody, that's this episode of our Black Broadway Men Spotlight series. If you've enjoyed this one, then know that there are others in the pipeline. So remember to keep in touch with us. Follow us on all of our social media platforms, and we will be sure to let you know the next great luminary voice to be honored, to be lifted, and to be lauded by Black Broadway men. Until next time, be blessed.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yay.